All right, people, welcome to Peeps Creek, the cafe where you can sit at our table, order your favorite drink, and listen to some slightly intense but definitely worthwhile conversations. A podcast where you can drink, listen, and converse. Today, I am joined physically in the calf by Christian. Say hello, Christian.
Hello.
And we are joined virtually by Denise. Say hello, Denise.
Hello.
All right. So, here at the cafe, we always have a conversation centered around a drink. And today I am drinking on some bourbon and sugar free Red Bull. And Christian, what are you drinking on?
What's Jack Daniel? Whiskey?
Whiskey.
Whiskey and Red Bull.
Whiskey and Red Bull. And Denise over there in Virginia Beach, what are you drinking on?
The server for your cafe is actually bringing me some coffee right now. I have a headache.
Oh,
Thank
is
you,
it?
sir.
That's some
Oh,
black
and the
coffee.
Peeps Creek mug.
Look at that. Wow.
Whoa.
Shameless plug. All right. So, if you are over the age of 21, make sure that you grab your favorite alcoholic beverage. If you are under the age of 21 or just don't feel like drinking, that is perfectly fine. You do not have to. You can get you some water, get you some tea, get you some coffee like Denise, get you some orange juice, get you some lemonade, or you can even get some cider vinegar for a cleanse.
What's on the menu today
Yeah.
at Peeps
All right.
Apple cider.
Apple
Actually,
cider.
now they have those gummies. So you don't even need that for. You can just do the gummies.
I've seen those, but I don't know if they work.
They do.
All right.
They do?
They
Do
do.
they?
We'll
I've
talk
never
about
tried
that
it.
later.
All right. And on today's menu is it still a shit show? All right. So the menu, for those of you who don't know, is the topic. All right. So why are we saying is it a shit show? The reason being is that we are doing a happy hour and we are going to partake in the vice presidential debate. Are you all excited to see the debate? This is so ghetto. This is why you don't let people work at home. Right there. Okay. I let you work at home, telework, and this is what you do. I mean, Jesus Christ.
You needed a server to come get the spoon.
You could just put that on the table. All right.
No.
Let me ask the question again. Are you all excited about the debate?
Very.
I am. I'm actually hoping that this one will not be a shit show. So
All
I'm very excited.
all right. So we actually did watch the presidential debate. We recorded. Christian began editing it, and then we realized what Christian.
I finished editing it and then my computer crashed and I lost all the footage and I don't want to do it again.
Shitty equipment. So next time, people, make sure that if you're going to edit something, get you some right equipment. No, but you know what? At the end of the day, it was a shit show of a debate, and so that was nothing but God's way of
A
saying,
mess. Yeah.
yeah, the people don't want to hear that. So,
Am I the only one that liked it? I've never seen
Did
the
you
debate.
really?
I thought it was entertaining.
Well, I've never seen a debate either. Remember, I
Yeah.
mentioned it on our first thing, and I felt like if this is what they are, I don't even want to watch them because
I
topics were
just
not
like
addressed.
yelling at Trump half the time, being like, shut up.
Gotcha.
But
so quick highlights from the debate, from the presidential debate. Any highlights from you, Denise, from that debate that you want to talk to the people very quickly about?
I mean, there were not much. I feel like the topics that were asked by the moderator were not answered, and I felt like at that point or that day of the debate, there were still people who were waiting to decide who they were actually wanting to vote for. And if they were waiting for answers to questions as to how you're going to do certain things, they didn't get it. So now they're just voting for whomever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely understandable. All right. What about you, Christian? This is your first debate that you participated in. Well, not as a participant, but as a viewer.
this is the first time I'm gonna ever vote for a president too. Um,
Hmm.
So, what are some highlights for you?
I I mean, the one that's most ironic is the fact that Trump was all like, "Oh, we have a vaccine. I can get it like this if we need it." Next week, not even a week later, he's positive for COVID. Um,
Like 2 days after.
yeah, and then now he's like back home. But like Denise said, they didn't really answer questions. The questions they were asked, they were just bickering at each other the whole time. Um, but for me, for it to be the first debate that I've ever seen, it was okay, I guess.
I Yeah, I agree. I mean, the debate, I don't really have any major takeaway from the debate. I think they were just over talking each other. And I mean, the one thing I will say is that Trump didn't answer anything as normal, so I didn't expect him to answer anything and didn't know anything of significance. I like the fact that Biden attempted to answer things, even though I still didn't like his performance overall. I felt like he spent more time trying to respond to the idiosyncrasies or the stupidity of Trump instead of just focusing on the question, tuning that person out, and just talking to the American people. He attempted to pivot to the American people several times. The lowest point for me for the debate actually was Trump making derogatory comments about Biden's son. Biden was a better man than me. If that was me, I would have punched him right in his throat. Like,
Mhm.
there's just certain things you don't do. And I just think children are off limit. And the fact that the person has a drug addict or was addicted to drugs or had some kind of issue, and him making fun of it is just emblematic of who he is. That's very similar to when he initially was campaigning and he was making um, derogatory statements about the the reporter who was disabled and mocking him, his physical well being, and his behavior. And for people to accept that, it's just I don't know.
Baffling.
Yeah, it's baffling to say the least. So I'm excited about this particular debate. We are going to try to do this manner. We are going to be listening to debate. We will periodically pause it, have a quick discussion, and then come back. So those of you who are on YouTube, you will hear the debate, pieces of it, at least the pieces that we are discussing. And those of you who are listening, you won't be able to see us in action with the video, but you definitely be able to hear us. Are you all excited to do this?
I am.
Christian, I need you to get your facial structure together and be like excited. Are you
Uh,
excited?
I'm so excited. I will say, I know we said that we're gonna like do our own research on the side and everything. I know nothing about Pence. I know a little about Kamala. I was just flicking off the
Kamala.
Kamala. We're just flicking off the camera. Um. So yeah, this is gonna be like, I'm like, what if I don't know, but this is all new to me. Both of them at least.
All right. So let's go ahead and let's get to start the debate. I'm pretty excited. We have a new setup this time that I hopefully is going to be pretty sufficient for us.
We're meeting as President Trump and the First Lady continue to undergo treatment in Washington after testing positive for COVID-19.
And by the way, I don't believe they're
We send our
positive,
thoughts
but
and
go ahead.
prayers to them for their rapid and complete recovery and for the recovery of
It's just,
everyone afflicted by the coronavirus.
come on,
One note,
Forcer.
no one in either campaign or at the commission or anywhere else has been told in advance what topics I'll raise or what
Which
questions
that
I'll
was
ask.
different, right? Because for the
This
presidential, they
90-minute
knew what
debate
the
will be
topics
divided
were,
into
right?
9
I
segments
don't
of
know.
about
I
10
didn't
minutes
hear it.
each. Let's begin with the ongoing pandemic that has cost our
What are you
country
doing? You know we can
so
see that on
much.
that thing, right?
That's why I was trying to get rid of
Senator
it.
Harris, the coronavirus is not under control. Over the past week, Johns Hopkins reports that 39 states have had more COVID cases over the past 7 days than in the week before. 9 states have set new records. Even if a vaccine is released soon, the next administration will face hard choices. What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do? Would you impose new lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots? A federal
Can y'all hear
mandate
okay?
to wear masks? You have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Thank you, Susan. Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country.
Mm-hmm.
And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers. We are looking at over 30 million people who
Look
in
how
the
she looking at
last
him.
several months
She
had
ain't
to
playing no
file
games.
for unemployment. And here's the thing.
She said, I'm bringing
On January
facts.
28th,
Complete
the
facts.
vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence,
January
that it is
28th.
airborne,
I thought she said
that
February.
it will affect young people,
January.
and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew what was happening, and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th,
Oh, yeah,
as
January.
opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew, and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax. They minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan.
Okay,
They
but what's
still
your plan?
don't
Because
have
you
a
only
plan.
got
Well,
2
Joe
minutes,
Biden
sister.
does. And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine, and making sure that it will be free for all. That is the plan that Joe Biden has and that I have, knowing that we have to get a hold of what has been going on, and we need to save our country. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that. And frankly, this administration has forfeited
Thank you,
their right to re-election based on this.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
Hello.
Vice President Pence, more than 210,000 Americans have
And
died
he's
of
he's the head
COVID-19
of the
since
coronavirus
February.
committee
The U.S. death
or
toll
whatever,
as a percentage
tax
of our
force.
population is higher than that of almost every other wealthy nation on Earth. For instance, our death rate is 2.5 times that of Canada next door. You
Wow.
head the administration's coronavirus task force. Why is the U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population higher than that of almost every other wealthy country? And you have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Susan, thank
Did I
you.
see how she
And
looked?
I want to thank the
Like,
Commission and the University of Utah for hosting this event. And Senator Harris, it's a privilege to be on the stage with you. And our nation has gone through a very challenging time this year. But I want the American people to know that from the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before
she
there were
looking?
more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China. President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done, and that was he suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world.
Well, sir, maybe
Now,
because
Senator
no other
Joe
president has
Biden
had to do that.
opposed that
Hello.
decision. He said it was xenophobic and hysterical. But I can tell you, having led the White House Coronavirus Task Force, that that decision alone by President Trump bought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. And we began really before the month of February was out to develop a vaccine and to develop medicines and therapeutics that have been saving lives all along the way.
You heard when he
And
said
under
it,
President
right?
Trump's leadership, Operation Warp Speed, we believe will have
Before
literally tens of
February, they
millions of doses
started
of the vaccine
But that's a
before the
lie.
end of this year.
working on the,
The
no,
reality
but that
is when you look at the
answers the
Biden
question
plan,
of
it
you
reads
knew
an awful lot.
January
Yes.
Like what
28, what was
Yeah, but
going
they
on.
ain't-
Course, have been doing every step of the way.
Senator Harris, would you like to respond?
Absolutely. Whatever the vice president is claiming the administration has done, clearly it hasn't worked.
Vice President Pence, you were in the front row in a Rose Garden event 11 days ago at what seems to have been a super spreader event for senior
Hello.
administration and congressional officials. No social distancing, few masks, and now a cluster of coronavirus cases among those who were there. How can you expect Americans to follow the administration's safety guidelines to protect themselves
Well, they
from
don't even
COVID
follow it.
when
Right.
you at the White House have not been doing so?
My wife Karen and I were there and honored to be there. Many of the people who were at that event, Susan, actually were tested
Yes.
for coronavirus. And it was an outdoor event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise. The difference here is President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates, and not just mandates with the coronavirus, but a government takeover of health care,
Thank you.
board.
Thank
the
you, Vice
Green
President.
New Deal,
Falling
all
asleep.
government control.
I don't know
We're
what
about
he's talking
freedom
about.
and respecting the freedom of the American people.
Let's talk about respecting the American people. You respect the American people when you tell them the truth. You
Hello.
respect the American people when you have the courage
Which we've
to be a
always
leader,
done.
speaking of those things that you may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can protect themselves. But this administration stood on information that if you had as a parent, if you had as a worker, knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now
Exactly.
you're standing in a food line because of the ineptitude of an administration that was unwilling to speak the truth to the American people. So let's talk about caring about the American people. The American people have had to sacrifice far too much because of the incompetence of this administration.
Exactly.
It is asking too much of the people.
Susan, we talked about
It is asking too much of the people.
So, like, okay, so what did y'all think so far about that? That her comeback in regards to what he's saying. Do you agree, disagree? Like, what's your perspective?
100%. I agree.
You got a reason? Why? Let's have like a little. Why do y'all agree or disagree?
Because they should have, like she's saying, they should have came out and said that this is going to happen, where literally things just shut down out of nowhere and places closed, people lost their jobs, like the unemployment rates went up, like most of my friends lost their jobs got shut down, and it was all because of this,
Yeah.
because no one knew the extremity of it.
Yeah. Let me just say this from my perspective. Like, I agree wholeheartedly with both what you're saying. The thing that I don't want me to sound like I'm biased, but one thing that I really despise about what he's doing is trying to pull on the heartstrings of the patriotism of American citizens. Like, let's take for example, very quickly, 9/11. When September 11 hit, right? A lot of people didn't like George W. Bush. A lot of folks despised him in the office at that time. But what he did was he came out and he told us what he knew at that time. At least it appeared that he told us what he knew at that time. And people were able to rally around that perspective because they could make an informed decision. And what they're trying to do now is, after the fact, try to pull on the patriotic strings of individuals, because that's what gouge folks to get excited and this, that, and the third, their base. They're not focused on the American people. They're focused on their base and ensuring that their base is saying, yes, it's America first, this, that, and the third. But the reality is that they didn't put America first because they didn't give you the information that you needed to make an informed decision about what you wanted to do with your family. And a lot of people lost loved ones and couldn't even go to the freaking funeral, or they were dying in a
Or be
hospital.
there. Yep.
Exactly, dying in the hospital, and you could not say goodbye to your loved ones because you couldn't be in the room. And first responders didn't have the necessary equipment so they can combat and hopefully alleviate some of the spread, because they didn't have the necessary equipment to deal with it. Like, that is some BS. Like, fundamentally, that's BS. Sorry.
Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after
I mean,
the
a lot of
election,
people don't want to
should
be the first one
Americans
taking the vaccine.
take it, and would you take it?
You're the dummy.
If
Pig.
the public
Or the guinea
health
pig.
professionals, if
The guinea
Dr.
pig.
Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Vice President Pence, there have been a lot of repercussions from this pandemic. In recent
At
days,
all.
the president's
That's on
diagnosis
period,
of
Pooh.
COVID-19 has underscored the importance of the job that you hold and that you are seeking. That's our second topic tonight. It's the role of the vice president. One of you will make history on January 20th. You will be the vice president to the oldest president the United States has ever had.
So,
Donald Trump will be
Age
74
discrimination?
years old on Inauguration Day. Joe Biden will be 78 years old. That already has raised concerns among some voters, concerns that have been sharpened by President Trump's hospitalization in recent days.
you got a concern with that,
Vice
Denise?
President Pence,
I
have you
do.
had a conversation or reached an agreement
I
with
mentioned it in
President
our text
Trump
earlier.
about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes without interruption.
Well, Susan,
She needs to stop
thank
saying
you,
that.
although I would like to go back.
Here we
I,
go.
I think we need to move on
Well,
to the
thank
issue
you,
of
but I would like to
vice
go back.
presidency.
Because
Well.
the reality is that we're going to have a vaccine, Senator, in record time, in unheard of time, in less than a year.
Voters have a right to know more detailed health information about presidential candidates and especially about presidents, especially when they're facing some kind of challenge.
Absolutely, and that's why Joe Biden has been so incredibly transparent, and certainly by contrast, the president has not, both in terms of health records, but also let's look at taxes. We now know, because of great investigative journalism, that Donald Trump paid $750 in taxes. When I first heard about it, I literally said, you mean $750,000? And it was like, no, $750. We now know Donald Trump owes
an intern
is
trying to
in
help me
debt
set up something.
for $400 million. And just so everyone is clear, when we say in debt, it means you owe money to somebody. And it'd be really
Hello,
good to know
somebody.
who the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, owes money to, because the American people have a right to know what is influencing the president's decisions. And is he making those decisions on the best interest of the American people, of you, or self-interest? So, Susan, I'm glad you asked about transparency, because it has to be across the board. Joe has been incredibly transparent over many, many years. The one thing we all know about Joe, he puts it all out there.
Campaign has proposed new programs to boost the economy, and you would pay for that new spending by raising $4 trillion in taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations. Some economists warn that could curb entrepreneurial ventures that fuel growth and create jobs. Would raising taxes put the recovery at risk? And you have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
Thank you. On the issue of the economy, I think there couldn't be a more fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden believes you measure the health and the strength of America's economy based on the health and the strength of the American worker and the American family. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who measures the strength of the economy based on how rich people are doing, which is why he passed a tax bill benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America, leading to a $2 trillion deficit that the American people are going to have to pay for. On day one, Joe Biden will repeal that tax bill. He'll get rid of it. And what he'll do with the money is invest it in the American people. And through a plan that is about investing in infrastructure, something that Donald Trump said he would do. I remember hearing about some infrastructure week. I don't think it ever happened. But Joe Biden will do that. He'll invest in infrastructure. It's about upgrading our roads and bridges, but also investing in clean energy and renewable energy. Joe is going to invest that money in what we need to do around innovation. There was a time when our country believed in science.
I will say, in comparison
and
between
invested in
this
research and
debate and the other,
so that we were
it's more
an
substantive
innovation leader on the globe.
than the
Joe Biden will
debate
use
with
that
the
money
president.
to invest in education. If you have student loan debt, it's cut by $10,000. That's how
Yes.
Joe Biden thinks about the economy, which is it's about investing in the people of our country, as opposed to passing a tax bill, which had the benefit of letting American corporations go offshore to do their business.
When President Trump and I took office, America had gone through the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. It's when Joe Biden was vice president, they tried to tax and spend and regulate and bail our way back to a growing economy. President Trump cut taxes.
Yeah, because we had
across
to
the
bail
board.
our way to a growing
Despite what
economy because
Senator
all
Harris
you
says,
millionaires
the
was
average
stealing the
American
money.
family of four had $2,000 in savings in taxes. And with the rise in wages that occurred, most predominantly for blue-collar, hardworking Americans, the average household income for a family of four increased by $4,000 following President Trump's tax cuts. But America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you, on day one, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes. It's really remarkable to think, Susan. I mean, right after
I didn't hear that.
a time where we're
She
going
just
through a
said that.
pandemic that lost 22 million jobs at the height. We've already added back 11.6 million jobs because we had a president who cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, fought for free and fair trade, and secured $4 trillion from the Congress of the United States to give direct payments to families, save 50 million jobs through the Paycheck Protection Program. We literally have spared no expense to help the American people and the American worker through this.
Senator Harris.
Well, I mean, I thought we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000
He said
a
he's going to
year.
repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well,
I'm speaking.
it'd be important if you said the truth.
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then have a conversation, okay?
Please.
Okay.
Woo!
Joe Biden will not raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden is the one who, during the Great Recession, was responsible for the Recovery Act that brought America back. And now the Trump-Pence administration wants to take credit.
Exactly. Taking
when
credit
they
for a
ran-
lot
when
of
they
that
rode the coattails of Joe Biden
spilled over
for the
into the
economy that they
administration.
had at the beginning of their term. Of course, now the economy is a complete disaster. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who's in court right now, trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which means that you will lose protections if you have pre-existing conditions. And this is very important, Susan.
Yes,
and it's
but
important.
we need to give Vice President.
I'd just like to, he interrupted me, and I'd like to just finish, please. If you have a pre-existing
I
condition,
love her.
heart disease, diabetes, breast cancer, they're coming for you.
Yeah.
If you love someone who has a pre-existing condition,
Thank
they're
you, Senator
coming for
Harris.
you. If you are under the age of 26 on your parents' coverage, they're
Coming
coming
for you.
for you.
Senator
Coming for
Harris,
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So let me just take this moment to say this. I would say that my aunt, who passed away of cancer, had difficulty, and my grandma passed away from cancer, had difficulty with health insurance, had difficulty with life insurance, all because of the condition that they had. And I'm not for certain that they received the best care. I'm not a doctor, but I would say that I was in the room with both of them, and I saw the way that the health professionals interacted with them, talked to them about their conditions, and treated them about their conditions. So I get that people are upset and they think that the Obamacare, which technically is called the Affordable Care Act, and the reason it was called Obamacare because Mitch McConnell was basically trying to do a dig against Obama, and Obama took that as a badge of honor. But putting that aside, but for things like that, some of these individuals who are battling with illnesses won't be able to get insurance and won't be able to keep getting the treatment that they need to combat the illnesses that they have, or to potentially eviscerate them if there's a cure. And so for me, it's very personal. Like, I get it. It's not the best. I'm not saying it is the best thing, but the aspect about pre-existing conditions is important to me personally.
This year, we've seen record-setting hurricanes in the south. Another one, Hurricane Delta, is now threatening the Gulf. And we have seen record-setting wildfires in the west. Do you believe, as the scientific community has concluded, that man-made climate change has made wildfires bigger, hotter, and more deadly, and have made hurricanes wetter, slower, and more damaging? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Our air and land are cleaner than any time ever recorded, and our water is among the cleanest in the world. And just a little while ago, the president signed the Outdoors Act. It's the largest investment in our public lands and public parks in 100 years. So President Trump has made a commitment to conservation and to the environment. Now, with regard to climate change, the climate is changing, but the issue is, what's the cause and what do we do about it? And President Trump has made it clear that we're going to continue to listen to the science. And President Trump and I believe that the progress that we have made in a cleaner environment has been happening precisely because we have a strong free market economy.
Joe understands that the west coast of our country is burning, including my home state of California. Joe sees what is happening on the Gulf states, which are being battered by storms. This administration took the word science off the website.
That they
and
did.
then took the phrase climate change off the website.
I didn't
we
know
have
that.
seen a pattern with this administration, which is they don't believe in science.
They did that
And
when it
Joe's
came on.
plan is about saying we're going to deal with it, but we're also going to create jobs. Donald Trump, when asked about the wildfires in California, and the question was, the science is telling us this, you know what Donald Trump said? Science doesn't know. Joe has a plan. This has been a lot of talk from the Trump administration, and really it has been to go backward instead of forward. We will also re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
Vice President Pence, how would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Competitors, adversaries, enemies? You have 2 minutes.
China is to blame for the coronavirus. And President Trump is not happy about it. He's made that very clear, made it clear again today. China and the World Health Organization did not play straight with the American people. They did not let our personnel into China to get information on the coronavirus until the middle of February. Fortunately, President Trump, in dealing with China from the outset of this administration, standing up to China that had been taking advantage of America for decades in the wake of Joe Biden's cheerleading for China, President Trump made that decision before the end of January to suspend all travel from China.
Susan, the
Let me stop.
Trump administration's perspective and approach to China has resulted in the loss of American lives, American jobs, and America's standing. There's a weird obsession that President Trump has had with getting rid of whatever accomplishment was achieved by President Obama and Vice President Biden. For example, they created within the White House an office that basically was responsible for monitoring pandemics. They got rid of it.
Not true.
There was a team of disease experts that President Obama and Vice President Biden dispatched to China to monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them out. We now are looking at 210,000 Americans who have lost their lives.
On Monday, the Senate
You know
Judiciary
what I will
Committee is
give
scheduled to
Pence?
open
He
hearings
has no
on Amy
wrinkles.
Coney Barrett's
Is it makeup?
nomination to the Supreme Court. Senator Harris
Doubt it. I think
will
that's
be
his
there as a member of the
face.
committee. Her confirmation would cement the court's conservative
Botox.
majority and make it
Botox.
likely open to more abortion restrictions, even to overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling. Access to abortion would then be up to the states. Vice President Pence, you're the former governor of Indiana. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want Indiana to do? Would you want your home state to ban all abortions?
The issues before us couldn't be more serious. There's the issue of choice, and I will always fight for a woman's right to make a decision about her own body. It should be her decision and not that of Donald Trump and the Vice President, Michael Pence. But let's also look at what else is before the court. It's the Affordable Care Act. Like, literally in the midst of a public health pandemic,
Hello.
when over 210,000 people have died and 7 million people probably have what will be in the future considered a pre-existing condition because you contracted the virus.
Okay, so I just want to pause that. So I know I've said this, and there was crickets from you two,
Cricket.
but this is I really think this is an important point
Wait,
because
before you say that, didn't when his presidency was coming to an end?
it wasn't coming to an end. It was February 2016, so he had at least 8 more months.
I know, but it was the year that it was gonna come to an end. What were you about to say that?
No, because I said that before, but I'll say it again.
I
In
know, but that was in the previous one that got lost.
February 2016, we lost Justice Scalia,
Yeah,
who passed
and they
away.
didn't let him like.
Mitch
Just-
McConnell
yeah.
didn't even let it go to vote. He said that it was an election year coming up in November. Remember, this is in February, and so let the people decide. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, notorious RBG, recently passed away. I think it was September the 7th or something like that. I forget the date specifically. Passed away, and to the point here, they're saying we are going to go ahead and fill this seat because we have a constitutional obligation to do it. I just find it reprehensible that someone can say that we have a constitutional duty now, but you didn't have a constitutional duty then to fill the seat. And remember the import of, the Supreme Court. People don't tend to recognize how important they are. These are the individuals who tell Congress that what you did is unconstitutional. These are the people who can tell the president that what you're doing is unconstitutional. And if you pack these individuals with the same type of dogma perspective, then yes, it is problematic because the The reason we have a lot of these liberties that we have is because justices have looked at the Constitution, read between the lines, and said that this means this, right? The whole concept of right to privacy under the Fourth Amendment, when you read the Fourth Amendment, it says absolutely nothing about privacy. But it was about justices who read what the word means in the Constitution and interpret it to mean that it covers these different things. Just like Roe v. Wade, the whole abortion thing. I don't care what anyone's perspective is about choice, pro-life. I'm not even going to say what mine is. But what I will say is that it has been precedent that has been in this country since God knows when. I forget the date, but it was like the 50s or 60s, what have you. I forget the date. But it's precedent that a woman has the right to choose. And certainly states have tried to dwindle that down. But this is not the time to use your religious beliefs to try to force people to not have the liberties that we have become accustomed to.
When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court?
Here we
Judge
go.
Amy
The
Coney
same
Barrett
thing
has
that Trump tried to
confirmed.
do with Biden, remember?
I mean, there have been 29 vacancies on the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack Obama. Presidents have nominated in all 29 cases. But your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court, which has had 9 seats for 150 years, if you don't get your way. This is a classic case of if you can't win by the rules, you're going to change the rules. Now, you've refused to answer
That's what
the
Mitch
question.
McConnell did,
Joe
because
Biden has
remember,
refused to answer the
he
question.
changed the
So I think
rules for
American
the
people would
Supreme
really
Court
like
so
to
that
know
Trump could just
if
push
Judge
people
Amy
through.
Coney Barrett is
But
confirmed
okay,
with the Supreme Court of the United States.
let's keep the facts
Are
right,
you
bro.
and Joe Biden, if somehow you win this election, going to pack the Supreme Court to get your way?
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more. In 1860,
Well, I'd like you to answer the question.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm
Come on.
speaking.
Come on.
Okay. In 1864, one of the, I think,
I
political
love her.
heroes, certainly of the president, I assume if you
Not
also Mr.
voting,
Vice
not
President,
saying
is
that I will
Abraham
vote for her.
Lincoln.
I just love how she,
Abraham Lincoln
Mhm.
was up for re-election. And it was 27 days before the election. And a seat became open on the United States Supreme Court.
There we go.
Abraham Lincoln's party was in charge not only of the White House, but the Senate. But Honest Abe said it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision
Here we go.
about who will be the next
Put your
president
foot
of
in
the
your mouth.
United States. And then that person can select who will serve for a lifetime on the highest court of our land. And so Joe and I are very clear. The American people are voting right now, and it should be their decision about who will serve on this most important body for a lifetime.
Do y'all know what they're talking about? Denise?
Ain't it about the one moment, I wrote it. It's the 9 seats that the Senate created where there's more conservatives
Say
and
that word.
liberals.
Go back and say that word. Who created?
The
Congress. Put Congress there.
Okay.
And it's very unfair, and it is a complete lie for him to say that if Biden and Kamala were to be elected, that they are going to pack the seats, because the reality is that they don't have the authority to do so. In order for that to happen, that means that you have to flip the Senate and get rid of at least 3 to 4 Republican senators and bring them in. And then you have to get both houses to pass a bill to do so. So him trying to make it seem, and this goes to another point of them thinking that they are above the law and thinking that the executive branch gets to decide what they want to do, when they want to do it, how they want to do it, because there are checks and balances in our system for a reason. And that is one of the checks and balances. The president and the vice president does not have the authority to do so. Certainly they can go and talk to people and try to get them to do it in the House and in the Senate, but that's just politics. But he's trying to manipulate folks who probably don't know any better of
Mhm.
how the system works. And that's just wholeheartedly a fabrication and insincere. The Supreme Court don't have to hear your case. Okay. There are only certain cases that the Constitution says goes to the Supreme Court. And 99.9% of the cases that individuals are involved in are not those cases. It's the cases who are decided by the lower district courts that then go up to the Court of Appeals. The federal judiciary, these are federal judges from federal district courts as well as Court of Appeals. These are people who don't have to run for election. Once they are nominated and confirmed, they are life appointees. And so the more individuals you get on the district courts and in the Court of Appeals who are aligned with your political views, be that, you know, um, staunchly Republican or who do not look like the people who come before them, the more likely you're going to have disparate discrepancies and a disparity, discrepancies, sorry, and the sentencing of individuals, which is what the 13th was talking about. And so Trump said at that last election that I've nominated more people than Obama did his entire years on for the federal bench, and that's what he's doing. So these are judges who are seeing folks who get a low level federal offense and they go before these judges and they're sentenced. So it's not just about the Supreme Court, it's about the federal district courts from the different districts and the Court of Appeals that matter as well.
In March, Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old emergency room technician in Louisville, was shot and killed after police officers executing a search warrant in a narcotics investigation broke into
Not
her
a search
apartment.
warrant, a no-knock
The police
warrant. Let's
said
be
they
real.
identified themselves. Taylor's boyfriend said he didn't hear them do that. He used a gun registered to him to fire a shot, which wounded an officer. The officers then fired more than 20 rounds into the apartment. They say they were acting in self-defense. None of them have been indicted in connection with her death. Senator Harris, in the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes.
I don't believe so. And I've talked with Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, and her family. And her family deserves justice. She was a beautiful young woman. She had as her life goal to become a nurse, and she wanted to become an EMT to first learn what's going on out on the street so she could then become a nurse and save lives. And her life was taken unjustifiably and tragically and violently. And it brings me to, you know, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that America witnessed, during which an American man was tortured and killed under the knee of an armed, uniformed police officer.
I'm getting
And
chills all
people
over again.
around our country, of every race, of every age, of every gender, perfect strangers to each other, marched shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, fighting for us to finally achieve that ideal of equal justice under law. Look, and I'm a former career prosecutor. I know what I'm talking about. Bad cops are bad for good cops. We need reform of our policing in America and our criminal justice system, which is why Joe and I will immediately ban chokeholds and carotid holds. George Floyd would be alive today if we did that. We will require a national registry for police officers who break the law. We will, on the issue of criminal justice reform, get rid of private prisons and cash bail, and we will decriminalize marijuana, and we will expunge the records of those who have been convicted of marijuana. This is a time for leadership on a tragic issue of unarmed Black people in America who have been killed.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
I trust our justice system.
Here we go.
A grand jury that refused the evidence. And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor, you would assume that an impaneled grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong.
Mostly everyone should know that if a prosecutor wants to get a jury to a grand jury to agree with them, they can do that. There's this in law school, there's this old case where the prosecutor was indicting a ham cheese sandwich. The grand jury didn't know that it was a sandwich, but the prosecutor put forth the facts of the case, and the grand jury indicted the sandwich. So for him to say that I'm surprised that you're a prosecutor and you don't trust the justice system is inherently inconsistent with what of how the system works. First of all, grand juries are secret. It's not a public thing. You're not entitled to necessarily have, as a defense, you're not entitled to have your lawyer cross-examine. It's not like a trial, right? You can have your lawyer there, but you don't get all the rights that are afforded to you as if you were in trial. Second to that. Thirdly, if you look at the case, it is rare that a grand juror will come out and say that the information that you told these people that was presented to us is inconsistent than what you told us. So in the Breonna Taylor case, one of the grand jurors the reason that they had to release that is because a grand juror filed the case to ask the judge to release this information, because this is an emblematic of prosecutors playing around with evidence to support their political leanings or the fact that it is a serious case or a bad case for their particular district. And so they're going to fudge with the evidence as they present it.
Who thinks that she is going to set him straight after he finishes?
I hope she does. The way that facial expression right there.
Exactly why I'm saying it, because she's looking like, oh, I'm gonna wait until
That
you're done.
facial expression is like, you better come with some facts. Okay.
You're entitled to your opinion, Senator. I think, look, and with regard to George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd, and justice will be served. But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting that followed.
If you look at the historical context of rioting and looting, it's because when the government refused to use the process that they put in place to protect the citizens that they supposed to protect, what else do you get? You think about the riots in Detroit. You think about the riots in Tulsa. You think about that. No one is bringing up the fact that in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the white folks burnt down the whole for the black folks because the black folks were trying to be prosperous, right? So you had a whole city burnt down and eviscerated because we didn't want black folks to do what we say that you're supposed to be set up to do. And so this is just emblematic of privilege and a disregard for people's right to express themselves and demand that people take them seriously. And so it just frustrates me that people focus on the rioting and the looting, but we're not focusing on the lost lives of individuals who are innocent at that time, because at the moment they have not been proven guilty of any particular crime.
This presumption that you hear consistently from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that America is systemically racist, and that, as Joe Biden said, that he believes that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities, is a great insult.
Oh.
To the men and women who
Oh
serve.
my
That's a
God.
fly on his head. That's a fly on his head.
The uniform of
Y'all
law
see that?
enforcement every day.
Yes.
Wait, I want
President
to
Trump
take a
and
picture of
I
that.
stand with you.
That's because the fly was like, and you know flies like shit. They like the smell of manure. And this is what the fly is saying. God works. Peep America, look at this. This is a sign that this is.
I will not sit here and be lectured by the Vice President on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on the stage who was personally prosecuted, everything from child sexual assault to homicide. I'm the only one on this stage who has prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's homeowners. I'm the only one on this stage.
Let them know.
Colleges for taking
She said, you ain't got
advantage
no
of our
credentials.
veterans.
Where your credentials at, bro?
And the reality of this is that we are talking about an election in 27 days, where last week the President of the United States took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans and refused to condemn white supremacists.
Not true.
And
Not true.
it wasn't like he didn't have a chance. He didn't do it, and then he doubled down. And then he said, when pressed, stand back, stand by. And this is a part of a pattern of Donald Trump's. He called Mexicans rapists and criminals. He instituted as his first act a Muslim ban. On the issue of Charlottesville, where people were peacefully protesting the need for racial justice, where a young woman was killed. And on the other side, there were neo-Nazis carrying tiki torches, shouting racial epithets, anti-Semitic slurs. And Donald Trump, when asked about it, said, there were fine people on both sides. This is who we have as the President of the United States. And America, you deserve better.
And he has no, yeah.
Senator Harris conveniently omitted, after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments, he condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, and has done so repeatedly. You're concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish. This is a president who respects and cherishes all.
What I want to know, bruh, is when he was on the debate stage, the first debate, when he was asked that question, why couldn't he specifically say that white supremacy has no place in America? That's not what we stand for. How hard was that? Did you hear that? You watched the last debate. Look at your notes.
No, he didn't say that.
Okay.
But you talk about having personally prosecuted. I'm glad you brought up your record, Senator.
Thank you.
But I really need to make this point. When you were DA in San Francisco, when you left office, African Americans were 19 times more likely to be prosecuted for minor drug offenses than whites and Hispanics. When you were Attorney General of California, you increased the disproportionate incarceration of blacks in California. Yeah. You did nothing on criminal justice reform in California. You didn't lift a finger to pass the First Step Back on Capitol Hill. I mean, the reality is your record speaks for itself. President Trump and I have fought for criminal justice reform.
Thank you, Vice President
Pence. Fought for educational choice and opportunities.
Oh my gosh, shut him up.
Yes, because I don't know what he's done, because I haven't seen him.
Thank you.
Let's not forget that she's operating under two prisms. First, a female, right? So you have that eye on her, and then a woman of color. So there are certain. Both,
isn't she like
she
Muslim?
No, she is Asian. Her mom,
okay, yes,
and her father is black. But those are things that a lot of people who are non-minorities and non-women don't have to think about, because they are considered to be, it's okay for them to do that. If a female gets too passionate, oh, she's emotional, right? Mm-hmm. If a woman of color gets angry or gets excited about a topic, oh, she's an angry woman. She don't know how to control this, that, and the third. We can't have that, right? So, you know, it's a difficult walk to walk.
We believe in the American people. We believe in our democracy. And here's what I'd like to say to everybody. Vote. Please vote. Vote early. Come up with a plan to vote. Go to iwillvote.com. You can also go to joebiden.com. We have it within our power in these next 27 days to make the decision about what will be the course of our country for the next 4 years. And it is within our power, and if we use our vote and we use our voice, we will win. And we will not let anyone subvert our democracy with what Donald Trump has been doing, as he did on the debate stage last week, when again in front of 70 million people, he openly attempted to suppress the vote. Joe Biden, on the other hand, on that same debate stage, because clearly Donald Trump doesn't think he can run on a record because it's a failed record, Joe Biden on that stage said, hey, just please vote. So I'll repeat what Joe said. Please vote.
Thank you, Senator. Vice President Pence, President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would be your role and responsibility as Vice President? What would you personally do.
Peaceful transition of power. Remember that when Obama was saying no one thought Trump was going to win. Okay. Obama opened him with open arms, him and Melania, and said, no matter who is selected the president, when January, because the Constitution says that January 20th is when the new president starts, period. Okay. So when that transition occurs, that means that I am going to peacefully leave the White House and bring in and support the new president. So traditionally, presidents have always done that. Even presidents who have had,
Before they get elected.
once the election occurs. In
So
other words,
after November 4th, whatever it is.
November 3rd
Third.
is the day that we elect, right?
Yes.
But the Constitution, what happens is that technically, right? The Constitution says that new president technically don't start to January 20th.
Hmm.
But traditionally, what has occurred is after November 3rd, as you go into the new year, what happens is they have that whole inauguration and all of that, and they bring in the new president. The old president leaves, and it's a peaceful transition.
Uh-huh.
The old president normally go and take the last flight on Marine One to wherever destination they choose, and the new president comes in and start moving in to the White House. What Trump has said is that we got to see what happens on the vote on November 3rd. Basically, if he doesn't agree with the vote, as it turns out, he may contest it and try to basically stay in there.
Let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses
We
to
don't
prevent
need
Joe
an
Biden and Kamala Harris from
impeach
changing
president
the rules and
again.
creating this universal mail-in voting that'll create a massive opportunity for voter fraud. And we have a free and fair election. We know we're going to have confidence in it. And I believe in all my heart that President Donald Trump's going to be reelected for 4 more years.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight, but for the final question of the debate, I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown. She's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah. And here's what she wrote, quote, "When I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are 2 candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If our leaders can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along?" And then she added,
Come on.
"Your examples could make all the difference to bring us together."
Come on.
End quote. So to each of you in turn, I'd like you to take 1 minute and respond to Brecklin.
I would tell you that don't assume that what you're seeing on your local news
I'm sorry,
networks
sir?
is synonymous with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship
says, look at
between
Fox.
Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States, one very liberal, one very conservative. But what's been learned since her passing was the 2 of them and their families were the very closest of friends. I mean, here in America, we can disagree. We can debate vigorously, as Senator Harris and I have on this stage tonight. But when the debate is over, we come together as Americans. And that's what people do in big cities and small towns all across this country. So I just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. And the American people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument, but we always come together and are always there for one another.
Of all the questions that he answered, that was his best answer.
And I disagree.
Well,
I think he was trying to be sympathetic.
well,
Is that the right word? Is
I-
that how you say it? Sympathetic?
but
I
that's
don't think he means it because he wouldn't.
well, okay. Let me clarify my statement. It's the question that he's answered head on the best, in my opinion. I'm not saying he agrees with it or not, What I will say is this: the reason I say that, and it could be just my stupidity or ignorance, because you don't see anything about him since he's been vice president. I mean, how often have you heard about him, period, doing anything? He's been tasked with this coronavirus thing, whatever. We haven't heard anything. I knew more about him when he was the governor of Indiana because of all his ultra conservative views. But what I'm saying is, I just felt like of all the questions asked, this was the best answer he had for the night. But you say you disagree, Denise. Why?
I do because I just don't like the word assume for an eighth grader, right? Because I can understand if you tell a person my age or someone who's over 20, don't assume because it's not like that. But you're talking to an eighth grader that doesn't have the experience. And obviously, you can tell that she's been watching the debates, she's been watching the news. So you're not giving her the best example as to there's unity. So you could have taken that, I don't know. I just felt like
No, I hear you. That makes hearing you say that makes me. I mean, I don't think he answered any question for real tonight. If I had to pick a question that he answered the best for me is this one. But I definitely hear your perspective, and I agree with that too. So it's maybe, yeah, I stand corrected.
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear your words, Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on who we are and who we should be that is a sign of leadership and is something we should all aspire to be. And that, that brings me to Joe. Joe Biden, one of the reasons that Joe decided to run for president is after Charlottesville, which we talked about earlier. It so troubled him and upset him, like it did all of us, that there was that kind of hate and division. What propelled Joe to run for president was to see that over the course of the last 4 years, what Brecklin described has been happening. Joe has a long-standing reputation of working across the aisle and working in a bipartisan way. And that's what he's going to do as president. Joe Biden has a history of lifting people up and fighting for their dignity. You have to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has known love. And so, Brecklin, when you think about the future, I do believe the future is bright. And it will be because of your leadership, and it will be because we fight for each person's voice through their vote, and we get engaged in this election because you have the ability through your work and through eventually your vote
Thank you,
to
Senator
determine
Cruz.
the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
It was a great happy hour, and so the title was is this still a shit show or whatever? And so let's go to the moderators. Denise, shit show or no shit show today?
no shit show.
All right. And Christian, shit show or no shit show?
I agree with Denise. No shit show.
And I concur with my two moderators. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Deontay. Oh, wait. This is Sean
Wait, I want to ask something before you finish.
into America.
Will we have a debate on October 15th? Yes or no?
If they're going to have a debate, they should do it by Zoom.
No, but let's not even say Zoom. Do you think we're going to have a face-to-face
If I
debate
was
on
Biden,
October
I wouldn't have it
15th?
with him. Try to come and throw some hocus pocus dust on him. I wouldn't
I
have
don't think his wife is going to let him, though, because you saw that clip when he was
when she
talking
pulled
too
her
close.
back, she was like, bruh.
She was like 6 feet apart, sweetie.
Bruh.
Right.
Step on back,
Um,
bruh.
He was like, what's going on? And she
I
already
want to
like
say
moving.
I think they might, honestly.
I think they might too.
I think they
Christian.
not even might. I think they are going to have a debate just with certain like ground rules and more than 6 feet apart.
And they need to make sure because Trump didn't get tested last time. They need to make sure
No.
that they get him and his family, because I don't trust any of them, are tested, and he needs to come on that stage with a mask, and his family needs to wear a mask.
Anyways, this was a great discussion.
Great discussion here at Pittsburgh, the cafe.
Till next time, make sure you drink.
October
listen,
15th.
Until next time, make sure that you
converse.
drink, listen, and converse. And Christian will be editing this video. And
I
as
will
soon as
not.
he finishes this video, it will be posted in the audio pool. So great.
Till next time, make sure you drink, listen, and converse. Peace and love.